I call to order this meeting of the City Commission this July 8th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
It has. All are present tonight.
Very good. We have a presentation to introduce and swear in Mount Pleasant Police Officer Shane Waskovich. Am I saying that right? Thank you.
Hello. I'd like to introduce our newest police officer, Shane Waskovich. Shane was born and raised in Midland, Michigan. He attended college at Ferris State University and graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. While at Ferris, he also completed the police academy. Shane started his part-time law enforcement career with the Midland County Sheriff's Office as a Marine Patrol deputy while he was attending college. He was hired full-time by the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe Police Department, where he worked for 4 years prior to being hired by us. Shane started his 14-week field training program last week. We are very excited to have him aboard and know that he'll represent the department, the city, community with pride, integrity, and professionalism. In his spare time, Shane enjoys spending time with his wife, who's in attendance, along with his parents and his sister. His hobbies include hunting, fishing, and four-wheeling. He also serves as a volunteer firefighter for the Larkin Township Fire Department in Midland County. So we'll do the swearing in now, if you'll. If you raise your right hand. I, Shane Waskovich,
I, Shane Waskovich,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I'll support, defend, and uphold the Constitution of the United States.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. That I'll support, defend, and uphold the Constitution of the United States,
That I'll defend, support, and uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Michigan,
the laws of the state of Michigan,
and the ordinances of the city of Mount Pleasant.
and the ordinances of the city of Mount Pleasant.
Congratulations, welcome aboard. Do you have any words of wisdom for us? No? Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will open up our first public input on agenda items. If you'd like to make comment on something that we're talking about on the agenda tonight, you can come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Hello, I'm Kathy Rise. My address is 1717 Elm Street, and I am addressing item number 10, the amendment to purchase and development agreement for 410 West Broadway. I know this agreement has been around for a while, and I listened to the entire meeting last month of the work session where you met with the developers, and it raised a few questions and concerns for me as a citizen, realizing that there's a considerable amount of public dollars being used for this property. My biggest concern is the economic and environmental impacts that this property might have. The economic impact mainly being that if the city invests a considerable amount of money into this property to make it ready for development, there's no guarantee that it's going to get the money back, because the funding for this project is based on a number of grants and unsecured financial obligations. And so I guess in considering this proposal to purchase, I would think that it would demonstrate good stewardship of the city monies if there was some type of guarantee woven into that contract that if the developer backs out for any reason, that the money that the city invests be returned to the city. With the money, the purchase price at $360,000 or thereabouts, we were going to get some of that money back to pay for moving all the utilities and whatnot. But being that the purchase price is now down to 60-some thousand, we wouldn't actually reap any of that back. And I know there's some grants and whatever to help with moving the utilities, but just to weave that all into that purchase agreement so that the city doesn't lose money if it falls through. That was just a recommendation. And the other thing is I really wanted to compliment you on the public input that you received and listened to, and made some changes with the Pickard Street restriping project. And I just felt as a citizen that it really valued people's voices coming forward, and all of the time that we spent seemed like it was worthwhile, and that the city actually listened and changed the plan according to what citizens wanted. So I thought that was just commendable and great democracy at work, and I really, really applaud all of you. I know it's hard to sit and listen to all of it, but it really does show, and it makes our city much better for having those voices heard. It might even be a good idea to get the voices on this Parcel B project, or definitely the State Home project, so that you know that when you're acting, that you have those voices, and that people can feel proud about the projects as they come forward, because we do all live here, and we all want to share in the fun and get our voices heard. So not everybody's willing to come up, and so it's just a good practice, and thank you for doing so.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to give public comment on agenda items tonight? Seeing no one come forward, I will now close the public comment section. Next on our agenda is the receipt of petitions and communications. Manager Ridley, would you like to start us off?
We only have 3 things on this section of the agenda tonight: the ongoing report on pending items, the May minutes from the Tax Increment Finance Authority, and the April notes of the Traffic Control Committee.
Next on our calendar is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are items with an asterisk next to them on the agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, Nancy, would you like to walk us through?
Yes, and this part of the agenda is fairly short this evening as well. First of all, we have the minutes of your regular meeting of June 24th. And then secondly, we're recommending the award of 1 bid this evening. As you know, our municipal tractor with the snowplow was scheduled for replacement in 2017, and we've held off on doing that until the conversations on sidewalk snow removal were completed. And so based on the action you took on May 28th about what our plan is for sidewalk snow removal, we sent out requests for bids to replace this piece of equipment And we also sent out a bid to purchase the second piece of equipment that we had recommended under the option of having the city staff clear more of the residential sidewalks. Tonight, we have for you the bid recommendation for the replacement piece of equipment, which we refer to as the trackless. And even though we received 2 bids for that, we're recommending award of the only one that was a responsive bidder, and that would be an award to Bell Equipment. And this bid covers the replacement of the tractor and the snow plow. Since it's the same kind of equipment, we'll be able to utilize the blower that we currently own. So the bid price is $122,300, which is slightly above the budget that we had carried forward since 2017. So a small budget amendment of $4,300 will be necessary. I should point out, though, that because we received an insurance reimbursement for the equipment due to an accident it had last snow season, there's adequate funds in the motor pool fund to cover that budget amendment we first talked about, and also to cover the purchase of the second piece of equipment that we will be bringing forward to you in a couple of weeks. The next item on the consent calendar is to ask you to formally designate the Assistant Finance Director, Chris Saladin, as the voting representative at the annual Municipal Employees Retirement System meeting that is held earlier this fall. And lastly, approval of payrolls and warrants.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Commissioner Lalone.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did I not hear Nancy? I probably was dozing off here or
You
something.
weren't listening to me?
It'll be the last time. Did you include number 5, the minutes, as an item?
I thought I did.
Okay.
Okay.
I
So
just-
you weren't listening?
No, I just I
confirmed
went,
it.
went right down to the tractor and snowplow and started in there. So thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda tonight?
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion passes 7-0. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for a special assessment for District Number 2 and consider approval of resolution number 5. Nancy, would you like to introduce us?
Yes, this public hearing is on the assessment roll for the principal shopping district. And as we've discussed previously, this special assessment funds cover funding for those items that are unique to the downtown, that include the plowing of the parking lots and the adjacent sidewalks to those parking lots, the groundskeeping, including all of the hanging baskets throughout the district, the utilities, and power washing of the sidewalks, assuming the snow plowing is under budget. The special assessment has remained constant for the years 2016 through 2019, but this proposed assessment for 2020 and 2021 has an $8,000 increase on it across all properties. So after holding the public hearing, we ask that you consider resolution number 5. And what resolution number 5 does is it would accept the roll as presented and recommended by the Principal Shopping District Board and set the payment terms for the special assessment, which are it's billed 1/2 on each of the summer and the winter tax bill of each year.
I will now open the public hearing. You can make public comment, you can come to the podium, and you'll have 5 minutes. Just state your name and your address.
Mike Klump, for the record, talking about 300 South University. It's parcel number, if you want that, 17-000-00501-00. I just want to, go on the record that I'm not in favor of this assessment. I think the taxes and stuff here are pretty extreme already in this downtown area and district, and it's making it even harder for us to operate businesses and rentals and stuff in this district down here. And to add another, I think ours was $756 additional taxes on our property over there to additional assessment for what we're getting, I guess, especially at this property. I just wanted to be on the record that I'm not for the assessment, so.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment on the special assessment? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve the resolution number 5 as presented.
Commissioner Lalone.
Second.
Commissioner Kulik.
Not that I want to change this special assessment, but in the future, would it be possible for the city that, for future special assessments in the downtown, to say any new business could get a break for a couple of years to help them get up and get started? Or are we cherry picking, doing that, and it's going to create more problems than it's worth? And if you don't know, we can just report back later.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the legislation allows us to do that, but we can certainly check into it.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Toles.
I will not be supporting this. And I also requested paperwork, backup paperwork on assessments from the city assessor, and I never got those. I'm quoting from his letter here. I've worked to keep assessed increases to a minimum, but I had to work with the actual sales that took place, which are mostly for more than we have them assessed for. The sales since this study continue to support the sales prices being higher than what they have been assessed for. I totally disagree with that, and I don't know what current sales he's talking about, because there hasn't been any sales probably for 2 or 3 years. So, I mean, how do you go ahead and make a decision on this when you request data and you don't get the data?
Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of, Commissioner Kulik.
Would a motion to postpone till the next meeting create problems so that Commissioner Toles could get the information he requested if what he has isn't sufficient?
From a timing perspective, motion to postpone is not a problem. We're already at the point in the development of the budget that we've had to build it in already, recognizing it may need to be amended if it's not approved. So from that standpoint, it's not a problem. I guess if you do postpone it, I would be looking for some more clarity on what kind of specifics the commission is looking for, because I didn't realize there was missing information. So I would need some more details about what's being looked for.
Commissioner Toles, would you?
I'm referring to his letter where he talks about there were 8 properties with increases and 4 had decreases. So we're talking 12 pieces of property. I'd like to see that data.
By property, you want to see what happened to the assessed values?
I would like to see what happened to the assessed values, number 1, and number 2, what sales he's using for market comps here. He's saying everything downtown should be increased by 12 to 20%. What comps is he basing that on? As far as I'm concerned, this is incomplete. You know, the assessor's doing this is going to actually put down the parcels that he used. I mean, you can't go to tax tribunal with that, just that and write that down, and you got to present your comps.
He has a sales study that he does every year that's based on 2 years of sales data. So we do have the data. I didn't realize you were looking for the detailed information by property.
That's what I asked for the last time. Market comps.
Like I said, at this point, I would entertain a motion to officially request that data before we go any further.
I would make a motion to request the market comps and the studies that the assessor used be given to all commissioners.
Is there a second on that motion?
Don't we have a motion on the
Yeah.
parliamentary inquiry? I think we have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
So I'm wondering whether or not, if Commissioner Toles wanted to do that, if perhaps he wanted to make an amendment that we postpone the decision until we've received information. Would that be an appropriate amendment to add at this time, if that's what the commissioner wants?
I would add that to my motion.
Yeah.
So it would be an amendment to the motion that's on the floor
Just a
to
motion.
approve the resolution.
Not even really an amendment, you're just making a motion to postpone, which would be okay to do right now when there's a main motion on
Okay.
the floor. So if that's what you're wanting to make, is a motion to postpone until these certain things happen, you could do that at this point.
Okay.
So we need a second for that motion. Commissioner Lalone?
Second.
Okay. So discussion on requesting that information. Commissioner Kulik?
Would the clerk, I just clarify what are we going to be voting on? It's motion to postpone,
Right,
and what else?
Well, you're voting on a motion to postpone until staff can get you information, and then I was going to ask for how you want that wording to be, what you're waiting for specifically, so we can get that in the minutes.
Again, I want the assessor's market comps that he uses, that he turns into the city, and I want all market comp sales that he used to determine this report. He's saying there's 12 parcels here. I want to see what those 12 parcels are.
Let me read what I have.
yes, please.
So we have a motion to postpone until staff can bring back information on market comps and market sales that were used to determine the assessor's report.
Does that sound correct, Pete?
Yes.
Commissioner Kulik?
Could I propose an amendment that the information include a minimum of the 12 sales that the assessor referred to in the letter that Mr. Tolis is reading from?
I don't think the letter refers to 12 sales. It says he used sales data, and based on that data, the values were changed, and 8 properties had increases because they became uncapped, either due to renovations or transfer of ownership, and 4 had decreases because they split property. So it's 2 different pieces of data. There's a sales data, and then there's
the
information.
uncapping, and then there's the
Right.
increase due to, okay.
Is there any
I withdraw my motion.
Your amendment, you mean?
My amendment,
No.
thank you.
Okay, okay. So we're currently discussing Commissioner Tolis's motion, which is to postpone until we get the assessor comp data. I believe that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yep. So is there any discussion on that particular item? Commissioner Ling?
Well, I appreciate Commissioner Tolis's interest in finding out exactly how the assessments are done. Unless I'm missing something, I don't think I see a relationship between this motion setting the assessment, and I guess I'll ask the city manager, is there any relationship between the amount of the assessment and the value of the property?
The amount of the assessment and the value of the property. The assessed value is expected to be 1/2 of the market value of the property. So there is a relationship between those 2 things. But the special assessment
Right,
that we're
that's what I'm-
talking
that's what I'm
about.
asking about.
Yeah, there's no correspondence between those 2 because the special assessment is based on the square footage of the property and the number of parking spaces, and it allocates the special assessment amount. I think where the question originally came from is one of the public comments we received was that they were concerned about the special assessment going up because their taxes had just gone up by 12 to 20%. And the information we provided said the taxes didn't go up, the values of the property may have gone up, but the taxes only went up by the rate of inflation, other than those 12 properties which became uncapped.
Right.
So there's a relationship, but not really.
Right. I understand what you're saying. So from my perspective, if we are concerned about the way in which the evaluation is being done downtown on the properties, I think that might be an issue that we would want to pursue and perhaps get some of this information. But as far as the assessment itself, which is a separate issue, I just think it confuses the two issues, and I'm comfortable with the assessment. The assessment, the special assessment is based on what the actual expenses are going to be. And that's not going to change regardless of what we might find out about the way in which the valuations were determined. So I don't want to confuse those two issues. I'd rather go ahead, set the special assessment for the services that are provided that are not based on the value of the property. And then if there is a concern about whether or not the downtown properties have been overassessed, I think that can be handled in a different way, but it's not directly related to this issue. So I'm not going to vote in favor of postponing.
Commissioner Toles.
One quick comment on there, referring to the assessor's letter again. For the tax year 2019, on average, taxable values in the PSD increased 4.9%. Now, as a commissioner, I get due diligence, I get fiduciary duty. I want to see where that 4.9% came from. And I think, the assessment just keeps going up. You just keep asking for more money. We started at 85,000, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and we're at 123,000 now, and we're getting less services now. Used to plow at 2 inches, you plow at 4 inches now. And the answer is, oh, well, minimum wage went up. Well, I can see how it's going up, because during the 4th of July, you had workers out there, they're watering flowers on the 4th, probably getting double time.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
Nancy, when was the last time this assessment was raised?
In 2016, it increased to the current amount of the $115,000. And prior to that, it had not been raised since 2007.
Okay.
Nancy, do we pay seasonal workers overtime pay or holiday pay?
Seasonal workers receive overtime pay when they exceed 40 hours in a work week, but their schedules are set up that they typically work just 40 hours unless we have some special tournaments or baseball things going on. So when our seasonal employees work on the holiday, they do not receive extra pay, unless it's been a large week where we've had some overtime, but it wouldn't be at the double time rate, it would be at the overtime rate.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on our postponement to get data on the assessor's comp and market comp value? Seeing none, I will move forward to a vote. Lose my words here for a second. All those in favor of the motion to postpone until we are presented with the assessor's comp data, please vote by saying aye. And is there anyone who needs a clarification on what we're voting on right now? So if you vote yes here, we are voting to postpone. Okay. So all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same?
Aye.
Aye.
So that motion fails 2-5 with Gillis and Toles in favor. So now we are back to the original motion of approving resolution number 5 as presented. Do we have discussion on the main motion? Commissioner Perschbacher.
Many of you may not know this, but I manage a building downtown, and yes, we pay very large taxes because we have a very large building. But we enjoy the fact that I know that the downtown is going to be taken care of. It's going to be plowed. My sidewalks are going to be plowed. We have our own parking lot, but we have not ever stated that we had the opportunity to step out of having part of that assessment put on us, but we have clients that come and use street parking and other parking lots, and it's very important for us to have our clients feel comfortable coming into the downtown area. this assessment has not gone up. The last time it went up was 2016. Before that, it wasn't since 2007. Since 2007, I don't know if many of you remember how many years ago that is, but there seems to be a lot of things that have increased. Our wages have increased, utilities have increased, maintenance of machinery has increased, and this is not an outrageous increase in this assessment because it protects our downtown. It keeps it, as we all want it to be, inviting to the public, because if it's not inviting to the public, we can't convince the public to come down here, and then our businesses suffer. There's nothing wrong with this assessment. Yes, maybe it feels really big, but to me, it seems like a minimal price to pay to make sure that the places around my building are accessible to my clients.
Commissioner Kulik.
This special assessment isn't just a pipe dream that Michelle thought up. We have a group that's elected and appointed to represent those people. They're the ones that set the rate, and that board, Michelle, unanimously recommended this current rate. Anyway, they recommended this current rate, and they are people in the downtown that are paying the assessment as well. So I will be supporting assessment 5. After hopefully that'll pass, I would then make a motion that the information that Commissioner Tolis requests be brought to us at a future meeting. But that's a separate issue that, as Commissioner Ling said, I don't want to muddy the water with those two.
Appreciate that sentiment. Any other discussion on the main motion? All those in favor of approving resolution number 5, special assessment, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Nay.
So that motion passes 5-2 with Gillis and Tolis in the minority. And Commissioner Kulik.
I'd like to make a motion that at an upcoming meeting that we be presented with the specific information, not the general information that the assessor used to set the rates in the downtown. Is that correct, what you're looking for, Commissioner Tolis?
I'm looking for the market comps he used and the study that he turns into the city.
Okay, yeah, the specifics.
Jeremy, do you need a clarification on that?
I can use the same language from the other, if that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
On the postponement. We can do, getting you the information on market comps and market sales used to determine the assessor's report.
Okay.
Does that summarize what you're saying?
I believe so.
We just need a second on the motion. Commissioner Lillen?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? That motion passes 7-0. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on proposed application for Gursky Limited LLC for the Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Fund Program. And then we will consider a resolution on the same. Manager Ridley, would you like to walk us through this?
Yes, as we previously discussed, the regional loan funds are available for businesses throughout the Mid-Michigan region. Northern Initiatives, who's the agent for processing these loans through the region and with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, has worked with Gursky Limited, who recently purchased Motorless Motion in downtown Mount Pleasant. This loan is for a $24,000 loan to assist with working capital of the new business. The federal regulations require that the local unit of government hold a public hearing on the application before the loan can be officially processed. So after holding the public hearing, we recommend you approve the standard resolution as presented.
So now I will open the public hearing for this. If you'd like to make public comment, please stand at the podium, and you'll have 5 minutes, and just state your name and your address.
Hi, everyone. I won't take up the whole 5 minutes, to be honest with you. But I wanted to come introduce myself, and I'm pretty sure if I gave you my address, you wouldn't know where it is, because I live all the way out near Grand Rapids in Zeeland. My name is Bernard Roberson, and I'm a commercial lender for Northern Initiatives. And I thought it'd be a good idea to put my, name with a face in an organization. We are a nonprofit CDFI. As the city manager stated, we administer the CDBG revolving loan fund, and we've worked with Mike Ring in order to process the loan through that fund. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is that as a requirement, for every certain amount that's taken out, a job has to be created. And 51% of those jobs have to be given to a low to moderate income person. So with that being said, Mike Ring has the intent to create one job to a low to moderate income person. If you have any questions, Bill has my contact information. Don't hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email. My work phone is my cell phone, unfortunately. Thank you all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment on this specific hearing tonight? Seeing no one come forward, I will now close the public hearing. Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve the resolution regarding the application for Gursky Limited LLC for a community development block grant revolving loan fund application.
Commissioner Ling.
Second.
Commissioner Kulik.
I'm very happy to see that the bike shop was sold and it will be staying in downtown Mount Pleasant. It's one of those hub organizations that brings people to the downtown, a gathering point where they come for advice, they come to socialize, they come for repairs, a lot of different reasons, and having that in our downtown is an important thing. I wish Mike all the success in the world. A question for the city manager, if for some reason he is not successful, the loan that this revolving loan fund, if it's not repaid, there's no liability to the city. It's coming from a different pot of money, correct?
Well, we certainly hope that isn't going to happen,
Right.
first of all, but you are correct. There are no city funds at risk here because we were required to turn over those funds to the regional organization, and they were federal funds starting out that we were holding on to, and then we turned all of them over to the regional organization, so there are no city funds at risk.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, earlier this year, we continued this Northern Initiatives program, and at the time, it had been open for a few years, and we were kind of thinking, man, obviously we wanted to continue it because if we didn't have it, it's lost money, but the hoops that you have to jump through to get this fund, to get this grant money, or the loan money, and then how that makes it available to other businesses in downtown Mount Pleasant, Mike is really breaking down the walls for us. So I really appreciate that this is finally being utilized, and also keeping one of our vibrant businesses downtown alive and well, as Commissioner Kulik pointed out. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Tolis.
I would have asked what the processee permitter is what he's charging for this $24,000 loan. We don't have to have it now, but I'd like to have it.
So is that
You can come back to the podium.
sure?
We're not allowed to charge fees for this program. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you. Vice Mayor Gillis.
Last year, we had this bucket of money, and I guess the application process is formidable and takes many hours and pretty complicated. Our staff couldn't take on the duties of trying to implement this type of loan. Unfortunately, they don't have the time, maybe the expertise to go through this all the way down to what it deals with when you're handing out these funds. My reservation was the amount of money that's coming from this fund when the people that are doing the applications, because our government has made it so complicated that a person couldn't do it without the help of yourself. So it pleases me to find out that you are not taking anything out of that fund, and I thank you for that. So it makes me feel a little bit better about voting yes for this evening.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the resolution, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same? So this motion passes 6-1. Next on our agenda is item number 10, which is to consider amendment to purchase and develop agreement for 410 West Broadway. Manager Ridley.
Yes, the 7 of you heard most of this 2 weeks ago when we had the work session discussion, but I think it's important to give the overview for the benefit of the audience and those who may be viewing at home. So I'm going to summarize some of the information that was shared 2 weeks ago during your work session. And it goes back to the original intent of what we call Parcel B or 410 West Broadway. The vision since 2003, which was confirmed in February of 2018 at a joint meeting between the City Commission and the Economic Development Corporation, was a priority for a mixed-use building on that property with a strong desire for a residential component as part of the building because of the positive impact that housing would have on the downtown and the need for apartments that were marketed primarily to young working professionals, the workforce housing, or what's often referred to as the missing middle. We've now had 3 different market studies that have been done that have supported the need for this type of housing in our community. As you know, there's been numerous discussions and potential proposals vetted over the years, and each time we've learned more about the complexity of attaining the original goals that were set for this site. The purchase and development agreement that was entered into with Michigan Community Capital in September of last year was for and continues to be for a first-floor commercial property of which Green Tree Grocery is expected to be the primary tenant, and there's a small space available on the first floor for a second retail tenant. The 3 upper floors would be apartments marketed toward that workforce housing or that missing middle. Michigan Community Capital has progressed further in this due diligence process than any other proposal and has again throughout the process identified further challenges with this site, but in each case they've developed a plan to address each of those challenges. MCC provided information of the identified funding sources for each piece of the development and has the piece from the city that we would cooperate with would be the Community Development Block Grant that we talked about 2 weeks ago that would fund the infrastructure for the movement of the storm sewer line, the sanitary lift station, and the utility or the electrical wires above ground. And MEDC, or the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, has indicated that if the city is a recipient of that grant, that there would be no matching funds required for that. So the commitment that's being asked for from the city in the funding is, as we've talked about before, it includes the 2 tax abatements, which are, one of them is for 12 years and the other is for 15 years. When the proposal was accepted last year, we all believed that those tax abatements would be for 100% of the taxes and would be between the 12 and 15 years. And what has changed in the meantime is based on this type of development, the amount of taxes that can be abated is limited to approximately 50% of the taxes. So what this means is as soon as construction is complete, some taxes will be generated immediately both for the city and for our other local taxing jurisdictions. Because of that tax obligation, Michigan Community Capital will have to start paying the taxes upon completion of the construction, and therefore they've asked that the purchase price of the land be reduced from the original $360,000 to a new purchase price of $65,000. The calculations that Mary Ann Cornexel has done as the finance director indicate that in the first 15 years of the development, at the approximately 50% tax rate, the city will collect over $400,000 in taxes during that time period. So that amount plus the revised purchase price results in revenue to the city over the first 15 years of $466,000 compared to $360,000 of a year ago when the purchase price was higher. And in addition, the other taxing jurisdictions will receive approximately $1.5 million of taxes over that 15 years. The other local request for the original development proposal had to do with possible assistance with parking needs. And the specific request is just looking for assurance or an easement that both the parking lot behind this building and parking lot 12, which is at the corner of Oak and Broadway, would remain as public parking. So at the end of the work session discussion, there seemed to be general support to continue to move forward with the project and bring it the official document to you for action to confirm the local commitment. So the city attorney has drafted amendment number 3 to the purchase agreement that outlines the details of the 2 tax abatement requests, outlines the parking requests, and the change in the purchase price. It also includes the commitment on behalf of Michigan Community Capital to not convert the apartments to MISHDA low-income apartments for the first 30 years. So we recommend you approve the amendment as drafted, and then we'll take it to the Economic Development Corporation, who's the actual owner of the property, for their approval and signature. Marilyn Crawley from Michigan Community Capital is here this evening if we have additional questions for her. But based on the public comment from the beginning of the meeting, I guess I would just reiterate that the city would have no investment in the project at the beginning. Any funds that we would expend for that public infrastructure would be grant funded. And so the city outlay, there would not be a city outlay because that grant has 0% matching on it.
Commissioner Ling.
I'd like to move to approve amendment number 3 to the purchase and development agreement with Michigan Community Capital for 410 West Broadway.
Commissioner Kulik.
Support.
Discussion, Commissioner Kulik.
When I first heard of this, I really wasn't thrilled with the idea of reducing the purchase price on the property. But to make this project work, this is an extremely complicated project with a lot of different funding sources, a lot of different pieces. Some of the pieces are still moving, which makes this difficult to do. I will be supporting this. The comments tonight, even if this project goes through, if we get the grant, those same improvements, moving the lift station, burying the wires and moving the storm sewer are going to have to be done for the next project to come along. If we continue to create obstacles for developers to come and do projects and invest in our community, I can only guess the problem we're going to have when we start trying to lure developers to come and do projects out on the regional center property that we own. So I will be supporting this.
Commissioner Toles.
I will not be supporting this tonight. I passed out some documents before the meeting started. And one is Michigan Community Capital's website, and the other one is their articles of corporation that basically lays out who they are, what they do. And I was under the assumption that we're putting high-end apartments here. After you read this, these people specialize in low-income housing. That's why I passed them out, so everybody could read it and look at it. The second thing is, on page 2 of that, it says length of investment. Our investments are long-term. We anticipate a 10-year plus ownership horizon and seek predefined purchases options annually beginning in the 7th year. So all they're going to do is build this, spin it, sell it, and move on. And I don't remember talking in that session that all of a sudden we're going to designate parking. Now we're giving a easement on a public parking lot. That's the first thing in this document that was drafted. The second thing is number 4. Number 4 doesn't stop anything from going low-income housing. That says the buyer for a period of 30 years. What happens, this developer sells it 7 or 8 years from now, and that goes low-income housing. It just doesn't make sense to me. If you want to put something in there that's got teeth to it, you would put a deed restriction in there. But I guarantee you put a deed restriction in there, this developer won't be doing that project. I think we're getting way into this, and some of the commissioners want this so bad, and you had 4 other projects that were proposed in the last 10 years. You had Lodgeco. You had doctors that McGuire represented that submitted 2 different projects to the city commission. You had Mercantile Bank. If we'd have let Mercantile built, it'd have been a $5.5 million project with no abatements, and they'd be paying tax on $5.5 million building. But that wasn't good enough for this commission. That's 4 projects. And when I sat out here and I wasn't a commissioner, it was said by this commission, well, we got to do something because nobody's looking at this parcel. Well, you had 4 deals, and you shot all 4 deals down. This is just starting another can of worms, just like the regional center. And you got a problem there, that's not cured there, and now we're starting another. We don't have to be a partner to this developer. And I will not be supporting this.
Commissioner Ling.
I am going to be supporting it. I understand some of the arguments that Commissioner Toles has made. He talked about some of those at our work session. Overall, it seems to me that this is a project that finally will put into that property exactly what the city has hoped to have on that property for the last 12 years, which is a mixed-use development with retail on the first floor and apartments that are aimed at the missing middle, those people who are not able to, or not low income and are not able to afford the most high-end apartments, and therefore our goal had been to have housing for that missing middle, which is specifically, while they talk about doing some low-income projects, it specifically talks in here that one of the goals of Michigan Community Capital is to meet that missing middle, which has been a goal of this commission for a long time. So I think that this project has the possibility of finally allowing us to have the kind of project downtown that we have been interested in having, that the Economic Development Corporation has been interested in having, and that will be an exciting project and will do a lot to revitalize downtown. I'm not concerned about the change in terms. From my perspective, the amendment number 3, is simply renegotiating the way in which the city will receive revenue. And previously, the revenue that the city would be receiving would be from the purchase of the property for $300,000. With this amendment, we will be receiving revenue in a different way, which is through the taxes that we're going to be receiving over the next 12 to 15 years, which we would not have been receiving previously, because previously it was 100% abatement, so we would have received $300,000, but then there would have been no taxes for the first 12 to 15 years for the 2 different abatements. This way, it's a 50% abatement, which means we will be receiving taxes, and therefore, at the end of 15 years, we'll have 25% more revenue than we would have had if we had sold it for $300,000. So I think the city comes out 25% ahead. But more importantly, as the city manager pointed out, all of the other taxing units come out way ahead, because 100% abatement would have not only affected city taxes, but county taxes, the ICT taxes, the Commission on Aging taxes, the medical care facility taxes, all of the other taxing units that also receive taxes, and they would have received nothing for the first 12 to 15 years, and under this proposal, they're going to receive $1.1 million. So overall, the various taxing units will be receiving 5 times as much revenue as they would have, as the city, as would have been received with the $300,000 purchase price. So I consider this a good deal for the city and a very good deal for the other taxing units, and I think we're going to end up with a project that will be very beneficial to the city.
I would echo Commissioner Ling and Commissioner Kulik's comments. The grant money that we're receiving through the state of Michigan, which actually, it's federal funds, but then it's going to come through the MEDC and it goes to the city. That's worth $700,000 to do those infrastructure improvements, and without their help, there is no project here. And that would be money, if we turn that down, that we'll never get if we turn that down today. And I think, as Commissioner Toll has pointed out, a lot of those previous projects never got this far in their due diligence. There are a lot of complications with the property next door. There's contaminated soil. There are issues being close to a floodplain. And then there are the infrastructure issues. And so I really think that the state of Michigan is really committed to helping us do this project, and they've really come out really big. If we were to do this project by ourselves and remove those infrastructure issues, we would be far more worse off, and we're really getting a good deal here. The last project that came forward to us was a purchase price of $30,000 and a brownfield agreement, and yes, this board most of this board wasn't on at that time, but the board at the time did shoot that deal down. And compare this deal to that deal, this is a much better deal. We're going to get a nicer building. We're going to get a grocery store expansion with Green Tree in a downtown area. And as I think many people, if you look at urban areas especially, having grocery stores in an urban downtown setting is pretty rare. There's a lot of talk about food deserts in some of our big cities and how that affects people's living situations and how they can really make ends meet. And so we're really, in a way, getting 2 birds with 1 stone. And we're going to get tax money on day 1 out of this project. If you'd asked me a year and a half ago, what would be your ideal project and what kind of deal the city would get for that, I don't think I would have imagined this. I think this is better. So, Vice Mayor Gillis.
Where do I begin? I've been involved in this from 2005 when this first development started. We were set down the rabbit's hole and were given a really bad deal from J.E. Johnson. At that time, it was going to be condos that were being built on Parcel B, and the tax revenue from that building would help offset the millions of dollars we put in the Borden building. It wasn't going to be all on the taxpayers' back. And as everyone knows that has been here since 2005, that fell through. Litigation ensued. We got a little bit of money from J.E. Johnson to help with our shortfall still at paying for the Borden building. You all know you're paying for the Borden building. It shows up on your taxes twice a year that you're paying for a portion of this building. When the Maple Grove project a year and a half ago in December came to us, there were other projects in the pipeline. Mercantile Bank was one of them, corporate headquarters. Would have put about 70 extra people downtown working here, Monday through Friday. The EDC and the City Commission, majority of the City Commission, didn't want Mercantile Bank. They didn't want a hotel. They wanted a mixed-use development. We must have residential on Parcel B. Maple Grove may have only was going to give us $30,000, half of what we're getting now. But guess what? They didn't ask for any tax abatements. They were using brownfield monies, which is another bucket of money that we can't get to anyways. So they were going to use brownfield money to do some of the cleanups and some of the things that they had to do on that parcel. A much better deal for us because all the taxing jurisdictions would still be getting their money, and we would still be getting our money. And we would still be getting money to fill the shortfall of the cost of the Borden building. So when this project came, the sweet deal of this is we were going to get $360,000. This was going to help us make up that shortfall. We wouldn't have to be taking any more money from the general fund. That was the selling point last year when we first did the purchase agreement, which was partly a good deal. We wouldn't have to be constantly raiding the general fund. But now that's not the case. We're still going to be fulfilling that obligation over 15 years. We only have 3 years left, 3 or 4 years left on the Borden building. So that saying that we're going to be getting this money over 15 years does nothing about filling that hole right now. We will still be filling that hole this year and next year and the next year after that. I want you to realize the EDC has this parcel in its name, not the City of Mount Pleasant. The EDC, the Economic Development Committee, is a committee somewhat in the shadows. They're not elected. They're appointed. We have a representative here. Mayor Joseph is our city commission representative on this EDC board. They all get vetted. Anybody that wants to buy this parcel, they don't come up and talk to us. They talk to this group that meets off camera, in the shadows somewhat, and they decide the purchase agreement and what they want. We have the ultimate decision. But it's primarily vetted by the EDC, what's going to happen to any of these parcels we own. They will probably have their hands in the EDC will probably have their hands in the state home, and the city commission will transfer all the rights to the state home to the EDC, and they'll get to make these decisions on what you and I just put over $6 million to take buildings down from. The EDC, who is not elected, makes some of the biggest business decisions for our city and has made the decision of this development. In our charter, it states that any city-owned property 100 feet from the river being sold has to go to the vote of the people. Anybody that was in this town about 13, 14 years ago, we voted on the sale of City Hall that used to be at the top of Island Park because that's part of our charter. It's to kind of garner support from our community members. Is this what you want to do with your property that you own? Which I would feel much more comfortable with if we had this project on our voting ballots this November. The EDC, the way they got around this voting ballot for us to decide if we're going to sell this parcel because it's 100 feet from the river to this Michigan Community Capital is, we'll take this city's own land and we'll put it in the EDC's name. We got around the charter. Now we don't have to ask you taxpayers if you want to sell it because it's really not in the city's name. It's just a shadow pocket holder that they can take city land, put it in the EDC's name, and take it out of the will of the people. So you remember voting on the old sale of City Hall, and when that happened, it gave the City Commission at the time enough incentive that the people were behind them to then go ahead and rehab this Borden building. But it's a way to bypass the taxpayers' wishes, and that's what exactly it is. It's in the EDC's name, they get the final say. We get the final say of the purchase price. We get the final say if we're given tax abatements, which the majority of the commission here, I can tell you, this is already going to happen. I could have told you that at the last work session. I could have told you that 6 months ago that this was going to happen. This parcel has had several development ideas for construction on this property. Unfortunately, the majority of this commission had only one project in mind, a missing middle housing development. With this specific vision, the commission showed all their cards and would be willing to subsidize this development with a giveaway of tax dollars. This is a tax subsidized housing development. I feel the majority on this commission would have given anything to have this happen. The cost of the development will increase by $2 million because of the specific first floor commercial build out for a Green Tree Grocery who needs to expand. It does not feel right to me to fund a new building for a business who needs to expand with taxpayer dollars. I do not believe it is our taxpayers' responsibility to give tax abatements for the next 12 years on the commercial portion and 15 years on the housing portion. This will be a $1 million tax abatement. Yes, you heard right, $1 million in the next 15 years. I do not believe the city commission should be in the rental real estate business. I also do not believe we should be giving tax abatements to a housing development with rents from $700 to $1,100. This is another boondoggle for Parcel B, and the taxpayer is again asked to foot the bill. This is not in the city's best interest or our taxpayers. We could have had several other developments on Parcel Bs that were refused by the EDC and the majority of the city commission. This development was not our only option. This prime riverfront parcel is worth more than $65,000. We are giving this parcel away and the taxes for the next 15 years. We are not being good stewards of our city property or our tax revenue. This development agreement will also allow the tenants to use our 2 municipal parking lots. The tenants in the apartments will use our municipal parking lots because the developer is not making parking on the site itself. The developer also wants an easement to use our drive at City Hall for the access to their building. Their tenants' access and all of their grocery store deliveries will be using our Borden Building Drive. This will cost taxpayers more money for City Hall's drive's upkeep. We as taxpayers are not responsible for these expenses. We are not showing due diligence with taxpayer money or good stewards with this riverfront property. I feel like this project has been a done deal from the start, and that is very unfortunate. I will be voting no.
Commissioner Kulik.
I don't know where to start. The issue,
That was your first line.
the issue of tenant parking, virtually every business in downtown uses our municipal lots. Doesn't matter if you're an existing business or a new business coming in, you're using our municipal lots. You also pay the parking assessment. It's based on the square footage of the building and the number of parking spaces that you're providing. The developer is providing, I don't remember, 40, 50 spaces on site. And during the daytime, those are mostly designated for the retail portion of their development. And in the evenings, the tenants will be able to park there. We've invested a lot of money in these parking lots downtown, the one behind City Hall and the one across the street there. It doesn't do us any good to have a parking lot sit empty. Let's use it. If the parking lot's being used, that means there's business happening downtown.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
Nancy, is the overnight parking options, that's a sticker or you have to pay for that, right?
There are permits that have to be applied for the overnight parking.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the fee for the overnight permits.
Okay, so when it says in here that parking lot 12, public parking lot number 12 will remain public parking with overnight parking options for both tenants and customers. That means if tenants wanted to have that overnight option and park across the street, they would have to pay that fee.
If there's a fee for overnight parking,
Yeah.
that would be true, yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Gillis.
I don't think they'll be paying a fee. We had some discussion in the work session because they said they could change that parking anytime they wanted. The commission could, to say you can park there all night. I don't think we'll be getting any revenue for people that are parking there overnight. They'll probably just make it an open parking lot, an overnight parking lot. You can park in it to accommodate, of course, the new development.
We did discuss that, but we didn't make that decision.
About the fee or to change it?
About changing it.
Right,
So that's not something that's on the table right now.
correct.
And in here, it says overnight parking options, and any overnight parking options that we have in the city are usually permit.
I have seen that parking lot completely full when any kind of event comes to patrons that go to the restaurant next door. We've also seen many times where our parking lot is filled with people who are coming here not only for like a forum, for like the Pickard Street, also some of the city commission meetings. So I have a problem with sacrificing any of our Borden parking lot that we paid for as taxpayers. And if somebody was going to be parking overnight, I think they should be, have a sticker that they have to pay for.
Commissioner Toles.
A couple more quick comments. First of all, my building's next to Lot 8, and it's in a PSD. This lot on the south side of the road is also in a PSD, which we've been paying over the years. Maybe I should apply for an easement too and then get 10 free parking spots in my lot. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if this developer were to come in here tomorrow and say, well, I just don't want to pay anything for it, this commission would probably give it to him for nothing. I mean, and mark my word, when they get their DEQ requirements, they're going to be right back in here again, and they're going to be asking the city to file a grant to pay for all that. This is ridiculous. Now you're saying, well, we're coming up with all these problems. We wouldn't have had problems down the line if we would have sold it to Mercantile. It would have been Mercantile's problems, not ours. They're buying it as is and paying the full price for it and building a $5.5 million project. And also, you've got what you want, because on the last vote, we had CMU Smart Zone. They're going to build 911 apartments now that are going to fill the middle void. So you got your 911 apartments. Again, this document is just poorly written. There's no time frame. They've already been a year on this. How much longer are we going to go? On a project that we have earnest money down that can be given back to them at any time when they pull out. How do you do deals like that? But you've got people making decisions on that board that basically don't have any business sense. I mean, this is ridiculous, this agreement right here.
I think there's a lot of focus on past deals and items that maybe some commissioners don't find ideal. But I think the majority of this commission, and including myself, I think we look at the future and the positives of what we're going to get out of this project. We are going to fulfill an ask that the community has come forward for a long time about middle housing, and Mid-Michigan Capital, they look at workforce housing, which is 60 to 120% of median income. And in this town, and that's somewhere from a yearly salary of $25,000 to $48,000. And I bet most of the housing in Mount Pleasant probably is reliant on income probably lower than that. So this is going to be higher end housing for the area. We are going to get tax money. We are getting infrastructure improvements on a grant that is no cost to the taxpayer. And we're moving forward. If we spend all our time looking back at previous projects that failed, we would never put any time into projects that can succeed. And I think the commission and staff and our partnerships with the state and Michigan Community Capital, we've done that. We look at what we can do on the resources we have and those that we can pull from our partners and create a project that's really going to fill a housing need, a business need, and a vibrancy need for our downtown and our city as a whole. To pitch this project as a loss to the community, I think is short-sighted and unfortunate, because we really are gaining quite a bit. I think a lot of commissioners, when we heard about the Mercantile deal, sorry. Yeah, the idea that Mercantile is going to buy the property and no tax abatements, that's a sweet deal. It sounds really nice. But Mercantile never got this far, and we don't know what they would have asked for in the future. And to be honest, it's at this point, it's looking in the past. Most of this commission wasn't on here when that happened, and if we had gotten that deal, maybe it would have been a different situation. But today we have a decision in front of us, and I think the right decision is to move forward. Commissioner Kulik.
I'd like to call the question. We can go back and forth all night long, and let's just call the question, see where the votes are, and move on with this project.
Vice
I
Mayor
want
Gillis.
one more. I've been on the city commission for 3.5 years. No one has come up here and asked for middle missing rental housing, not one. So I don't know what this ask from the community is. No one asked for this type of development. Back in 2005, we were talking condos, homeowner occupied condos. No one asked for this type of development. Someone wanted this development in previous commission. They were completely set on this type of development, and the majority is now. So if you taxpayers have a problem with this, speak with your vote come this November, please. Call the question.
Does anybody else have a last second comment? Commissioner Toles.
One more comment. I kind of take offense to the thing that Mercantile didn't get anywhere. Mercantile was shot before they even got out of the starting gate. You know, that's just not fair,
To say that.
for one reason. And the second reason is the Morning Sun and everybody else wants to know why that project was turned down, and they can't get an answer. So where's the transparency there? Why was it shot down? That's my last comment.
You got the votes, so let's do it.
Yeah, let's just move on. We don't need to waste any more time.
All those in favor of the motion of approving amendment, is it addendum 3 and the purchase agreement with 410 West Broadway, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed?
Aye.
Hey,
That motion passes 5-2.
congratulations, Green Tree.
I think that was uncalled for.
I agree. I actually think, I'm not going to go into it in detail because it would be improper to talk about it at length, but Green Tree is a part of that project that, without them, that project's not a reality, and the public should know that. Item number 11 is to consider a closed session pursuant to subsection 8H of the Open Meetings Act to consider material exempt from discussion. Commissioner Kulik.
Move to consider closed session pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act to consider material exempt from disclosure or exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
Second.
I believe we have a roll call vote for closed session, so Jeremy will call the vote.
Commissioner Kulik,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Ling,
Yes.
Commissioner Perschbacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
No.
Commissioner Vice Mayor Gillis,
No.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-2. You needed 5 to go into closed session.
Next on our agenda is announcements on city-related issues and new business. Commissioner Perschbacher.
Tonight was was one of those demonstrations that I'd like to address. I would like to have the staff look into the possibility of when we have motions and amendments, to have them put up on the board behind us so that we can see them, so that we don't get confused by what's going on, because there seems to be a lot more distraction needed in our meetings when we're constantly asking what is on the floor. If I could ask the staff to do that, I would appreciate it.
Any other new business or announcements? Commissioner Toles.
Before the meeting started, I passed out a act of Congress which granted the regional center property to the state of Michigan, which has covenants and restrictions in it that I want everybody to look at. And I would also recommend that we don't spend any money on the regional center. At this point, we put a freeze on it until we get a comprehensive title opinion on this, going all the way back from this act of Congress all the way forward before we spend another dime.
Vice Mayor Gillis.
We still have two openings on two different committees, the Historical Committee, Historical District Committee, and the Parks and Rec Commission. If you would like to fill out an application, you can find that at mountpleasant.org. That's mt-pleasant.org under Boards and Commissions. And we will hopefully be filling those vacancies soon. I also want to remind the public, end of this month is the due date for your petitions to run for city commission in November. Is it the 22nd, 24th? 23rd. July 23rd, you would have to have 50 signatures from registered voters here in Mount Pleasant. You would probably want to get a few more than that, just in case some of the people who signed your petition is not registered or isn't a community member within the city proper. Please ask yourself what you can do for your city, and please ask yourself if we have the right voices up here. And if you are willing to devote the time and energy, and if you need any help for any guidance on trying to get those petitions signed, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. We really need some good candidates this November, so please do some soul searching and ask yourself, what can you do for your city? Thank you.
Commissioner Kulik.
I'd like to point out that those two boards that we're looking for appointments are other shadow boards that don't meet in front of the camera.
Any other new business tonight or announcements? Okay, seeing none, we will now open the second public hearing, or the second public comment section. This can be on agenda items or non-agenda items, any city-related business that you'd like to talk about tonight. Come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, I will now close the public comment section. And we will recess for a work session on recreational marijuana and potentially a discussion on our 2020 goals for the budget. Upstairs in conference room A, all the public is welcome to join us. Thank you.
Are we going to closed session?
I think we're doing that
After.
After the work session. Oh, wonderful.